The supermarket was crowded with the usual evening rush, carts squeaking, checkout scanners beeping, and tired shoppers moving through long aisles under bright white lights. In the middle of it all walked a little girl, no older than 8, slowly pushing a small basket that was nearly empty. From the outside, she looked normal, just quiet and well-behaved. She wore a pale yellow hoodie and kept her head down, as if carefully reading the labels on cereal boxes she clearly didn't want. Her heart, however, was racing. She had been taught something important at school only a few weeks earlier. A visiting police officer had spoken about safety and what to do if a child ever felt trapped or scared in public. He'd shown them a simple rescue signal, small, easy, something that wouldn't draw attention but could save a life. At the time, it had seemed like just another lesson. Now, standing alone between towering shelves, it was the only thing giving her hope. At the end of the aisle, a man leaned against his cart, watching her too closely. He kept pretending to check his phone, but every few seconds his eyes lifted to make sure she hadn't wandered far. He'd told her they were just shopping quickly, but nothing felt right. He wasn't kind, he wasn't patient, and he definitely wasn't family. The girl took a slow breath, trying to remember the officer's words, stay calm. Act normal, look for help. Her eyes scanned the moving crowd until she saw him, a uniformed police officer near the frozen food section. He was off duty, dressed casually, but the badge clipped to his belt was unmistakable. Her fingers trembled slightly as she pretended to stretch, lifting her hand just enough to form the secret signal. It lasted barely a second, quick enough that no one else noticed. Then she lowered her arm and picked up a random box, pretending to read it. The officer noticed. He had almost walked past when something clicked in his mind. The gesture. The exact movement he'd been trained to recognize. Years on the force had taught him to trust those instincts. He slowed his steps, casually repositioning his cart while keeping the child in his peripheral vision. She didn't look panicked, but that, he knew, meant nothing. The most dangerous situations were often the quietest. He watched as the girl glanced nervously toward the exit. That's when he saw the man. The man's posture was tense, alert, too focused. Not the relaxed body language of a parent bored by grocery shopping. The officer felt his jaw tighten. Without making eye contact or causing alarm, he turned down the next aisle, now moving parallel to the girl. She drifted along slowly, buying time, while the man followed at a distance, clearly impatient. The little girl pushed her basket toward the dairy section, her steps small and deliberate. Every few feet, she paused, pretending to examine milk cartons or yogurt lids, even though she had no intention of choosing anything. She was stalling, doing exactly what she had been taught to do. Don't run. Don't panic. Buy time. A few aisles away, the police officer mirrored her movement. He didn't stare. He didn't rush. To everyone else, he was just another tired shopper, casually checking his phone, occasionally stopping his cart. But his eyes never truly left the girl or the man shadowing her. The man was growing impatient. His fingers tapped the cart handle. He glanced at the exits, then back at the girl, frustration tightening his jaw. He took 2 quick steps forward, closing the distance between them. That was enough. The officer quietly spoke into his phone, keeping his voice low and steady as he requested immediate backup, giving a short description of the situation and the location. He felt the familiar shift inside him, the moment. Professionalism took over completely. This was no longer just observation. It was intervention. As the girl reached the end of the aisle, the officer moved in smoothly, placing himself between her and the man as if by accident. He crouched slightly so he was at her eye level, smiling gently, his tone calm and kind. "Hey there," he said softly. "Can you help me find the juice aisle?" The girl's eyes filled instantly. That was all it took. She shook her head and whispered, barely audible, "He's not my dad." The officer nodded once, slowly, as if he were being told where the apples were. He placed a reassuring hand near the girl's shoulder, not touching, just close enough to let her know she wasn't alone anymore. "That's okay," he said quietly. "You're safe now." The man stiffened. "Hey," he snapped, forcing a laugh. "That's my kid. We were just leaving." Before the officer could respond, Another uniform appeared at the end of the aisle, then another near the checkout lanes. Backup had arrived faster than expected. The man's confidence shattered. He tried to grab his cart and move past them, but an officer calmly blocked his path. "Sir, we need you to stay right here," one of them said firmly. The store had gone quiet. Shoppers watched from a distance, unsure but alert. The little girl clutched the officer's sleeve, trembling now that the fear she had been holding back finally escaped. He gently guided her away from the man and toward a safer corner near customer service. Within minutes, the situation was under control. The man was escorted away for questioning, his excuses falling apart under calm, steady pressure. The girl was wrapped in a jacket someone had offered and given a bottle of water. An officer stayed beside her, speaking softly until her breathing slowed. Hours later, the supermarket lights felt softer, the noise quieter, as if the chaos had taken its fear with it when the police cars left. The little girl sat in a small office near customer service, her feet dangling above the floor. A warm blanket was wrapped around her shoulders, and she held a juice box with both hands, sipping slowly. Each breath came easier now. An officer sat nearby, not asking questions yet, just being there. He told her his name and joked gently about how confusing grocery stores could be. The girl gave a small laugh, the first since everything had happened. Her hands had stopped shaking. Soon, the door opened suddenly, and her mother rushed in. The moment their eyes met, the girl jumped down, running straight into her mother's arms. They held each other tightly, both crying, relief pouring out after hours of terror. Her father stood behind them, his face pale, his voice trembling as he thanked every officer in the room again and again. They explained what had happened earlier that day, how the girl had wandered just a few steps ahead in a crowded parking lot, how a stranger had spoken kindly, offered help finding a cart, and how quickly she had disappeared. Minutes had felt like years. Fear had turned into panic. Panic into desperation. The officer who had seen the signal listened carefully. "She saved herself," he said honestly. "She remembered what to do. That signal worked." The girl looked up at him, surprised. "I was really scared," she admitted quietly. He nodded. "Being brave doesn't mean not being scared," he said. "It means doing the right thing even when you are." Later that night, after paperwork and statements were finished, the family finally headed home. In the car, the girl rested her head against the window, exhaustion washing over her. The city lights blurred as her mother gently brushed her hair back, whispering promises that she was safe. Days later, the story spread, not as gossip, but as a lesson. The police department shared a reminder online about rescue signals and child safety in public places. Schools asked officers to visit again. Parents talked to their children, teaching them what to watch for and how to ask for help without words. As for the girl, life slowly returned to normal. She went back to school, played with her friends, laughed again. But something inside her had changed. Not fear, but strength. She knew now that her voice mattered, even when it was silent. One afternoon, weeks later, she passed a police officer during a school event. She smiled and gave a small, friendly wave, not the signal this time, just a thank you. The officer smiled back, recognizing her instantly. In a world full of noise, it had taken one silent gesture, one observant glance, and one moment of courage to change everything. And because of that moment, a little girl's future remained exactly where it belonged, safe, bright, and full of possibility. Later, when her family arrived, rushing, crying, relieved, the girl finally smiled. She had been brave. She had remembered the signal. And because of that small movement in a crowded supermarket, a terrible outcome had been stopped before it could begin. One quiet gesture had made all the difference. The officer subtly reached for his phone, ready to call for backup if needed. His movements were calm, controlled, invisible to everyone else in the store. In his mind, the situation was already clear. A frightened child, a silent plea for help, and a chance, right now, to stop something terrible before it happened. And he wasn't going to waste it.